Yes, sir. We got a special guest in tonight. Former teammate, great dude, phenomenal person. Just a joy to be around. Elliot Brown.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Of course, bro. Of course. I appreciate you coming on. I had IGC in here 2 days ago, and I was telling him, bro, I know how summer is. I know people just want to be in the bed right now. So I appreciate you taking some time out today.
No, of course. I love doing these. Yes, we do have to get up at
Yeah.
4 in the morning tomorrow, but these are my favorite type of things. I love podcasts, love just chopping it up.
Yeah.
So let's do it.
Yeah. So I like to just get like a base ground going into each episode, like where you're from, childhood, family, all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's about as easy as it comes. Grew up here in Omaha, Nebraska kid through and through. My dad played here back in the 90s, 94, 98. So I grew up being a Husker fan, going to games since I was a kid. Just this was always my dream, right? Played football, baseball my whole life. Just, being a kid, pretty much white picket fence, like great
Right.
family. Mom and dad loved each other, had a little sister. Very blessed. God blessed me with an amazing life. Sports was pretty much everything in my life. Really found my faith when I got older in middle school, high school, and then just kept working my butt off to hopefully achieve my dream to coming down here.
Right.
Got a walk-on offer, so took it. And ever since then, I've been living the dream down here.
I love it. I love it. So starting off young, when was the first time you said your dad played here?
Yep.
94, 98.
Oh, yeah.
When was the first time you kind of fell in love with football, I should say?
I feel like I've been playing, like we play flag, obviously, like when you're 4 or 5 years old. But then I started playing tackle when I was like 6. So it was kind of crazy. So a bunch of the guys that are on the team now, I've been playing with since I was like
who?
6. Teddy,
Really?
Barrett Liebentritt, Caleb Benning, like a lot of young cats. Because I always played younger. I always played older, but like when our division, the way our like league worked, it was Pop Warner. So if you were heavier, you could play up. So Teddy was obviously a monster when he was 8 years old. So he was always
tallest on the team then?
Oh,
Still?
always,
Yeah.
So I've been playing with them forever. And so like my dad, his dad, Drew Christo, who plays baseball here, his dad played here. He was another one of our coaches. You have Damon Benning. All those guys were our coaches. So like we were really like, it wasn't just like you hold up a sign, like how like kids play football nowadays. It's not like, look at the picture, go run it. It's like we were running 2-minute offense, like tempo, like it was wild. So that's where it was like I just fell in love with like what football was, and obviously the history here, having all my guys, like we were best friends, loved, like it wasn't a job, like it was, we were able to be kids and play sports, and we were really good at it too.
Really? You guys were a raw team?
So like when you were a kid growing up, you watched that ESPN like down when they go to like Disneyland and play football.
Oh yeah.
Every year we
were y'all was like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Y'all was cold.
Except we never made it there. We were always one game away. If you ask Teddy or like any of these guys, our biggest like failure in life was never making it to ESPN. We were filling out surveys for like the interviews for like the TV.
Oh yeah,
stuff.
like favorite whatever.
Yeah, favorite TV. Like we were in the hotel, like asking each other, like, what should we put down for our favorite TV show? I was like, well, I like SpongeBob, but I don't want to like. That's cool.
Right.
So we were like saying ESPN and all this stuff, but nah, it was crazy.
So growing up, did you ever get to go? I'm sure you did. Go to any Husker games?
Oh yeah, every year. So my dad had season tickets because he's alumni,
right?
And so we would always go to at least 1 or 2 a year. My favorite one, like the coolest experiences, were the reunion games. So like when they would celebrate the national championship teams, they'd bring them out on the field and stuff. And my dad, 1 year it was him, and then I think it was one of the tight ends he played with. He had a kid, and so we weren't allowed to go on the field with him.
Right.
They're like, of course we're gonna bring him on the field. So he popped me on his shoulders, and I was running out there, just big, bug-eyed, looking around, like, oh my gosh. And then I think literally Jay Terry gave me like a wristband when I was like on the sideline.
Really?
Yeah, he
like young Jay Terry.
Oh yeah, young Jay Terry. I ran out there. He gave me like a wristband, and then we ran back. But I've always been growing up going to him. I was tailgating with all the ex-football players.
So was it like now that I know we'll get into you playing at Nebraska and all that stuff, but like just briefly, like was it like now we're in that end, knowing that your dad done it, in the 90s?
I mean, it's always been a dream of mine. I got pictures on my phone of like me, just like when I was first born, I was probably like 2 or 3 years old. I was like, when you go take like those little baby photo pictures at like places, I had my dad's helmet and I was like laying up on it. And so,
that's a tough picture.
Since I was a kid, this is like, some could say it was like God's like plan for me to be where I'm at. because I've been here. This is my 5th year. I
Mhm.
haven't really played all that much,
Right.
but I've been able to do a lot outside of
Oh my
football.
god.
That like
Yeah.
that's where I think I'm supposed to be at. Like
Right.
that's why I'm here.
Really.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that. I'm just trying to progression our way to college. So we get to high school.
hmm
And when was the point where like, okay, like, um, I'm gonna end up playing at Nebraska?
It was very late,
Really?
super late. Um, so like freshman year, sophomore year, whatever, you're just trying to figure out. Like you're trying to get big, strong, fast. Like I'm
Yeah.
just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, you're figuring out
Yeah,
everything.
and then like sophomore year, I played a little bit of varsity here and there as a receiver, just because I was quick enough and like athletic enough.
Right.
But I was always a quarterback. Played quarterback my whole life.
Wow.
So junior year, I started my first game like receiver DB, because the senior quarterback was like, they were like, we're gonna give it to the senior, and I was like, all right, cool,
Right,
just put
right.
me on the field.
Right.
But then first game he goes down, so then the second game I was like, they're like, all right, go get it. So I was like, all right, so played all that year at quarterback. We did fine, had a good year. No like recruiting, nothing.
Right.
I was like, whatever, my time will come. That summer, I did the camp circuit, so went to Harvard, Yale, like Nebraska, Kansas State, like just went around
Right.
doing camps and stuff, and just got my name out there. And then senior year had another good season, and then it wasn't like late into the like football season where like officially Nebraska was like, yeah, you have a walk on spot.
Really?
Yeah, because like the way it was like working, it was like communications were weird because like obviously my dad knows everyone that was on
Mhm.
the old staff.
Right, right.
And so like it was more of just like a
Yeah,
friendship.
so
Like,
this is like Frost era,
yeah,
and he
yeah,
played
yeah.
with Frost,
And
I'm
they
assuming.
were like Frost was at my house when I was a kid, like playing
Okay.
poker. My dad, like
Got
they
you.
were tight.
Got you.
But so like communications were just like it wasn't like official like
Mhm.
recruiting style. And so like we never really knew what like was going on and
Mm.
stuff. But eventually we did find out like, yeah, you have a walk on spot. And at that point I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Really?
Yeah.
So when you get up here, I always ask everyone their experience running out of Memorial the
Yeah.
first time. Like, what was that like for you? Obviously, you done it as a kid, but like putting on a jersey, putting on a helmet, what was that like?
So first year was COVID, so I didn't even
Okay.
get a step on the field because there was like limited guys.
Right.
Um, so that was super weird, obviously for everybody. But then that next year, that first game, I don't even remember who we played.
That was Fordham, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Fordham.
yeah.
Yeah. So we were suited up. I ran out there. It was just like a blessing to realize like all my hard work and like everything that I tried to like do to get to this point, like it's all come true.
Right.
So it was really just like breathtaking to be able to like run down the field, go to the end zone, get on a knee, and just like I really did just thank God, like thank you for putting me here. Like
Mm.
I think this is where I'm supposed to be. And then obviously it's gotten way bigger than I ever thought it would. So
Right.
it's really been cool.
Right. And during this time, you've built up a following on social media, and I guess I kind of want to ask, like, how do you manage something like that? Because it's definitely interesting being an athlete and then having a following, and obviously you're open about your faith, and we'll get into that. But was it like having that type of platform?
Um it is really interesting, especially for me, because like usually you see the guys like the 5-star recruits, all this stuff, they have the big followings and they get all the, accolades and all that stuff. So for me as a walk on, especially here for Nebraska, like I'm not that big of a name.
Hmm.
Originally I wasn't.
Right.
Um, and so I was like, let me just see what I can do with this. And then NIL started coming out and everyone
Uh-huh.
was like kind of freaking out. I just tried to take it day by day, like use my platform for the purpose of, like, what I wanna share. Like, I
Mm,
never really tried to, like, just show off. I always wanted to have, like, a purpose behind what I did
mm,
with it. Obviously, a lot of it, like you said, is my faith and, like, all
right.
that stuff, but, sharing photos from football games and all that sort of stuff that,
Right.
is cool for, like, people to see, but then also having a purpose behind it, which is my big reason of, like, why I do my social media.
Right. So if someone, let's say someone is, entering college freshman or even in a high school and they kind of want to grow their platform, what would you suggest?
Staying consistent.
Mm,
That's the biggest thing, especially with social media. Like I've done not a very good job at times with it because like you said, college football is a very
yeah.
time consuming thing where like it's hard if you're not on it 24/7. So like growing social media, you got to be able to stay consistent, whether it's like videos, pictures, whatever it is, always have content to put
Hmm.
out there. That'll just naturally grow you and then have your thing. I
Mm,
feel like a lot of
mm,
people try to like do too much or like just grab whatever attention they can. like, I think the most important thing is, like, have your reason to, like, what you're trying to do, whether it's, like, you're a fitness guy, like, really put out good fitness
Right.
stuff or, like, I don't know, whatever it may be, football, and, like, the other cool thing about, like, mine is, like, I have, like, a couple. Like, I have football, that football side where, like, I can really, like, show what I do that side,
Right.
but then also, like, my personal life because it's, like, what if like, people love to see what football players do outside of,
Right, right,
like,
right.
their job,
Mhm.
and then my faith, which is, like, tied into all of it. So,
Mm.
like, really, my niche is kinda, like, a little more spread out,
Mhm.
but you definitely need to have, like, your thing. Like, when
Right.
people go to your page, you're like, "Oh, this guy is that's his
Right.
thing."
There's identity there.
Yeah.
So with that, I feel as if that kind of opened up some opportunities for you to do some things in the community
Yeah.
and have a larger outreach. When did that start, and why is that so important for you?
Really, it started with NIL.
Mm,
Once NIL was legal, we were like, okay, I can like do these like kids camps. I can do these like speaking engagements. Like
right.
it makes it legal, and like I'm not gonna get in trouble if I try to go do something
Right.
with like an
Right.
organization
Right.
that makes money, right?
Yeah.
Because like you could go to a neighborhood or a school around here and be like just talk or whatever. But if you want to partner up with like a company that is for profit,
Hmm.
it was super hard to figure out. So like
Mm.
once NIL went through, I really remember like it went through on like June of that 2021 season, I think.
Right. Right.
And like within like 2 or 3 weeks, I had my first youth camp set up.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. I have a little team. I call it my team because it sounds cool, but it's really just my dad, my uncle, and then my cousin or aunt or whatever. I don't know how it all works, but they're like my people that like help me set everything up for like
Uh-huh.
a lot of stuff. So we reached out, we got a date set up, a whole thing. So I started recruiting guys. I was like,
Mm.
hey, nobody's ever done this really before
Right.
because it hasn't been allowed, but I was like, "Let's try it. Like, you guys wanna come help me figure this out?" Like, "Alright, let's do it." So, that was my first one that couple weeks right before the 21 season,
Hmm.
and then ever since then, I just kept it's been a staple for me.
Yeah. So is that the camp that you did probably a month ago or a few weeks ago?
Yeah, I just did one, I did 2 so far this summer, I have a 3rd one coming up. It's just basically it's a youth football camp.
Okay.
So, I bring my teammates, whoever wants to come, hang
Right.
out with the kids. We'll go usually they're in Omaha just because that's where I'm from.
Okay.
We go out there, we partner up with, like, their youth sports programs, so, like,
Hmm.
Millard Associated, so,
Okay.
like, that's one of them, and then, like, Elkhorn and stuff like that, Papillion, and they do all the promoting and, like, all that sort of stuff for
Right.
me just because I don't have the time
Hmm.
and we show up, we put on a kids camp, we teach them football drills and
Right.
like, but then we just make it fun too. Like
Hmm.
let them do fastest man competition, let them take their shirts off, play
Right.
football,
Right.
like
Right.
just, stuff that kids love to do. And it's been very successful. I've been very blessed to be able to do multiple of them, have a lot of fun. The craziest one was we went out to, remember Phelan?
Yeah.
He lived out in Benkelman, which is like very western Nebraska. We drove 8 hours out there and did a kids camp out there.
8 hours.
Yeah, because you're basically on like the Colorado border.
Oh my
And so
goodness.
because like so really the whole big deal was we were gonna go out there to do a camp,
Hmm.
but we were like, what's the best way to like Benkelman's 300 people. Like that's the
Right.
only people that live in their
Right.
town. It's like
Right.
how are we gonna recruit all these people? And it was their like town fair, which is like a big deal out there.
Okay.
So we timed it up with like the Benkelman like city like I don't know government or not like whatever
It's
you're
like
whatever
county fair or something
yeah
like
yeah
that.
it's like their county fair. And so we like talked to them. We're like, all right, these are the dates. Like, this is the best day to do it
Right.
because you don't want to do it during the pig showing because that's their thing. So we figured it all out. It's like, yeah, it was cool. I want to say we had like 100 kids out there
Really?
day one. Yeah, but then they got really tired really fast.
So what was I mean, obviously that's a great experience, but what was your favorite experience thus far with doing these things, engaging with these kids, getting in the community? Like what's your favorite experience so far?
It wasn't even a kids camp.
Mm.
I think a year, 2 years ago, I put on a charity basketball event at my high school.
Okay. Was that where
Um,
Travis
Yeah. You remember that? Yeah, so we teamed up with like or we did it at my old high school. We teamed up with like Special Olympics Nebraska and I brought a bunch of guys down and we played our like my like the football players, we played the Nebraska Special Olympics team like
Mhm.
for a little quarter and then we played like a local like Hall of Fame team, I guess you'd call it.
Okay.
And then we played like some high schoolers. And like I wanna say we had like 400 or 500 people out there.
Really?
We had like a special needs gymnastics team like perform.
Oh, that's
We had
awesome.
Elkhorn South like dance team perform and like just did some giveaways and stuff. But the whole night was really cool. It was actually like that. So that was my favorite because I really was able to put on like a spectacle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool.
I seen you do something with Runza back in the day. Are you a Runza fan?
I like the Runzas. I think
Okay.
they're the best at Memorial. It's like if you're gonna go get one
Right,
and you go to a restaurant, you're like, oh, this is trash. You got to go to a Husker game. It just hits different. But I do like their burgers.
Mhm.
They got good frings. But yeah, I did partner up with Runza.
Mm.
That was crazy one time.
Yeah. So we'll hint on this going into the next break. But you had to play a unique role last year with
Mhm.
your injury,
Mhm.
and obviously you being an older guy, what was that like for you? And just give us a little bit of backstory on that.
It's kind of like a weird thing how it all worked out. So basically, it was like going into the season, it was just like everything was normal, just trying to get on the field, special teams, all that sort of stuff. But then it was like I had a unique opportunity to where like I was able to help like almost coach
Right.
and still be a player,
Mm.
just like doing different stuff on the sideline, like signaling, helping coach different things. So that kind of did that thing, and then I got injured, tore my ACL. So then it was like that was like that was my best way to help contribute to the
Mm.
team because like obviously I couldn't play.
Right.
So I was like, all right, like I ain't got nothing else to do. Like, let me really like help us try to win. And so that's what I like locked in on. And then kind of led into this last what was it, winter. Our player development guy, Gus, who does like all of our player development stuff, like
Mhm.
community service, like community engagement, player engagement, all that stuff. I ended up getting like a little internship with him. And so like I started doing that too.
Right.
And so like all of it kind of just, you know, made a path for itself, and, like, it's just been kinda cool to see how
Mm.
everything's kinda worked out, but
So is coaching something you would want to do later?
yeah, I
Being a coach, not necessarily football, just being
yeah, some sort of, like,
right,
coach where I
right.
can, like, get with these guys, like, whether it's on the field or off the field. I think I've I've always said, like, I don't know what it is, but I think God's called me to be able to do something where I make an impact.
Oh
So I
yeah.
don't know how it works or what it's gonna look like yet, but,
Mhm.
like, any way I can impact somebody and, like, help them better themselves, I think that's what I should and, like, want to do.
Mm. When did you start to feel that?
It's crazy because like, my mom has always said, like, she doesn't know, like, obviously what it is or how, like, it's gonna work, but she's always thought that, like, I've been, like, blessed with, like, this unique, like, talent and gift to, like, do something bigger than myself.
Mm.
It's just, like, always how I've been growing up, and, like, I don't know how that sounds. It kinda sounds, like, a little weird or, like, maybe a little too, like, cocky or confident, but, like, it's just something about, like, God has given me an opportunity no matter where I'm at, like, or what I'm doing that, like,
Mm.
there's always something bigger than me.
Mm.
There's always some, like, whether it's a person or like a story or like organization, whatever it may be, there's always something bigger than myself that I've always attached myself to.
Mm.
Um, that I've always wanted, like it's always drawn me in. Like special needs has been a big thing in my life. Like
Right.
just hanging out with those kind of kids, like giving back to them. They've given back to me. So it's like always something going on in my life where it's like it's always
Mm.
bigger than me.
Mm.
So I think that's where it's just like God's doing something special where
Right.
like I'm just letting him take the reins and control.
Mm. Next segment we'll talk about faith, but just quickly, where did your faith stem from? Was it obviously you found it on your own, but was did your parents play a big role in that?
It's kinda weird where, like, they obviously, they did, like, growing up, they always, like, kinda
Right,
taught me,
right.
like, a little bit about God and stuff like that, but it was on my own with the help of, like, some of my best friends, like, now, they kinda helped me because their
Mhm.
dad was the pa is my pastor now.
There you go.
Yeah, so, like, they kinda, like, helped guide me, but, like, it's actually crazy, like, we can get into it
Yeah,
more, but,
yeah.
like, I was the one that kinda led the rest of my family to their
Oh
faith
wow.
now.
Wow.
Yeah, so it is like I said, God's just worked some mysterious ways, so
That's amazing.
it's been
That's
cool.
amazing. Yes, sir. So we was talking earlier about your faith walk and how that came about. You said you I'm not gonna put your words in your mouth, but you said you brought your family to faith
Yeah, I
in a
mean,
way.
in a way, yeah.
Okay.
Because like, so, like, growing up, like I was saying, like, faith has always been, like, a topic of discussion,
Of
like,
course.
when I specifically remember, I was like, "Mom, I wanna wear, like, a cross, like, chain." She was like, "This is, like it's not, like, something you can just throw on and, like, take it lightly, like, it's a big deal," like, she didn't really have the words, I feel like I remembered to, like, to really describe why it was a
Mhm.
big deal, but, like, it was important. So, like,
Mhm.
obviously and then my dad grew up in a Lutheran church. It's like he knew it all, but he just kinda, like, got away from it just as he grew up or whatever.
Right.
But, it was always, like, a thing, like, we would always kinda, like, do a quick prayer for dinner and stuff like that,
Right.
but it was nothing like our foundation. That it wasn't ever that.
When did it change? For you personally?
For me, it was middle school. So like I was saying, my two best friends, their dad is the pastor of our church, Love Church in Omaha. They had like a youth group on Wednesday nights. And so one day after like football, they're like, "Hey, you want to come to youth group with us?" I was like, "Sure." Like, I don't really know what it is.
Right.
And so they're like, "Dog, it's fine. Just like come, show up. It's here, blah, blah, blah." So I showed up and I just remember like that night, I was like, I don't know what just happened, but like this was legit. I remember going home. My parents were sitting on the couch in the living room. And I was just like going on like for 20 minutes about like everything they talked about, how cool everything was, everything I learned.
Can you describe that feeling while you was there though?
While I was
what did
there,
that feel like?
Like when I was there, obviously, like everyone talks about like the Holy Spirit, all that stuff, but it was just like I was in shock because I was like, all this music's going on. Like back then, when I thought of church, I was like, you go because my cousins were Catholic, so I'd go with them every once in a while.
Right.
It's like that was kind of my church thought. But then I went there, and it's a very like upbeat, like the newer church vibe where like we're praised and like people are up, like hands in the sky, like air, like really singing their heart out because like that's what it means to them. So like it was the first time where I really witnessed like what that is like and what that feels like. And so it was just like your heart's beating, like it's like this is like something special. And so that's when I went home after and I was like, this is mom, this is like the real deal.
Right.
And they were like, that's awesome. Like that's so cool.
Uh-huh.
And then that was kind of it. And then so I kept going every Wednesday. And then eventually I started going to Sunday services. So like 9 a.m. We'd play Friday night, high school football,
Oh,
whatever,
you was getting
Saturday.
up. Oh yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
then eventually, so like we go on Sundays, all that stuff,
Right.
or it was just me at first. And then my dad, I remember one day he was like, so our church actually did like a story on our family, like for a Christmas
Oh, that's
service,
awesome.
about like the whole thing. So like I got to hear from their perspective, which is really cool.
Mm.
So I remember my dad saying like one day they were laying in bed, like they heard me getting up, getting ready for church, and my dad was like why are we letting our son go to church and we're not there with him? Like it was super like he was just like we have to go, and so they came, and they were just like this is what we need to be doing every Sunday. And so they started coming regularly, and I just remember that, I wanna say it was, like, 2 or 3, maybe 4 weeks in, that's when my dad, like, recommitted his life to Christ, like, went up to the altar call, like, laid it out on the line, and ever since then, it's just been, like, a skyrocket, like, we made that our family's foundation, which was, like for me, it was awesome, and then obviously for, like, our family, it was a big turning point for us,
Right.
so it was cool.
So obviously, not saying you didn't grow up in it, but obviously the relationship and the connection deeper as a family later on. Now that I know you're still young, I know we're still
Yeah,
young,
yeah.
but when you have your family, like how do you wish to model it? I
Um
know it's probably a deep question, but
No,
yeah,
no, well,
yeah.
it's real because, I just got engaged a couple weeks ago.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness!
so, like, it's real, it's getting real here.
Congrats,
Yeah,
bro.
thank you.
Congrats.
So, like, those are talks we've been having is, like, how we wanna parent, like, all that
Right.
stuff, like, the talks you need to have,
Yeah.
obviously, to, like, figure it out. I think for me and, like, for my fiancée, Kayla, like, we've been talking about, like, it all has to, like, be modeled.
Mm,
Like, we can't just say something,
mhm,
but, like, if our kids aren't seeing us do it daily,
mm,
though I don't think they'll ever really follow.
yeah.
So, like, for me, I wanna make sure, like, the foundation I lay for my kids, it's like, I'm in my word, like,
Mm,
every day, they
mhm,
see it.
right.
I'm in the gym every day, they see it, and then, hopefully, they'll just wanna do what dad does.
Yeah. Does do what you do, not
Ex
what you say.
Yeah, exactly, because you can say
Right.
a lot of different
Yeah,
things, like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
see it all over the
Yeah,
world now.
yeah.
Everyone says a lot of good things, but
Right,
then one thing after another.
right.
But, yeah, so that's where I think, like it was weird how, like, obviously, that's not how I grew up because,
Mhm,
like, I never saw my dad read his Bible or do, like, any of that sort of stuff, but, like, God called me to, like so it always works out
mm,
God's way,
right,
but that's how I think I wanna make sure I try to lead my family
mm,
in the faith and stuff like that, obviously going to, like, church and worship music and all that
mm.
sort of stuff, but
So how has it been managing, obviously being an athlete, a student, but also your faith and being a follower of Christ? Like how has that been? And obviously the ups and downs that come with it.
yeah.
Because we all it's college, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
We all learn high school we learn about ourselves, and college we learn more about ourselves. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
For me, it's always just been, like, just different seasons. Every season's different. Some seasons I'm just like on fire. Like everything I'm doing, I feel like I'm just praising the Lord, like feeling like everything is like just daisies and roses. And then sometimes you're like, oh man, I'm getting smacked in the mouth right now. Like it's just I feel like one thing after another. But it's just cool to see, like, as I look back, like going into my 5th year, looking back on all 4 years of college, it's like, wow, like looking how God has like just had his hand over everything. Even when it feels like he's been a little bit farther in the distance or I've been trying to run further away from him, he's always been right there. And so for me, it's always just like trying to stay consistent, especially with like our schedules.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Is there like a story, or not put you on spot? Is there like a story or like a verse or in the Bible that you in this season that you um kind of cling to right now?
Um, I mean, I don't know why, but like so me and Kayla, my fiance, one day we were just talking about like the flood, like Noah's Ark and the flood and like all that stuff. I don't know how it came up or whatever, but we were talking for like 30, 40. It was a car ride.
Okay.
Because that's what it was. So we were driving in the car. It just got done raining. There's a rainbow, and I was like, "Hey, do you know like what the initial like image of the rainbow was?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" Like that was like God's sign to tell people He won't ever flood the earth
Yeah, the
again.
promise. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like she started asking questions about like, well, because she was like, "I don't get the flood. Like, how does this make sense? Like, you're telling me He flooded the whole earth and killed like everyone passed away?" And I was like, "Yeah, like." And so we were just going back and forth, like chit chatting and everything. And then she asked a couple questions. So I was like, how does that make sense? Like,
Right.
what do you mean? So like the last couple like weeks, I've just been kind of like little studying a little more and more about like just that flood and just
Mm,
how Noah was just like they said he was like the only blameless man on earth, and like he was the only one that could build the ark and like do what God was saying. So like just how strong that connection of
right.
Noah and God was, and just like the willingness to do what he was saying, and
Mm,
especially in this season where I'm at, like I don't know what my plan is after football. I don't know what's
right.
gonna happen, but like just hearing God hopefully and just trusting that he's gonna keep laying out that path for me to do what he needs me to do for him.
Yeah. And the willingness saved his family as well
That's what I'm saying.
for him to jump out and do it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's spectacular. So obviously you said 5th year. Looking back on young freshman Elliot, like what would you tell him? If you had to tell him something. I know
Um,
some people say I wouldn't say anything, but if you had to tell him something.
no, I would tell him, just like take a deep breath.
Mm,
So I remember a lot of times when I was, uh, especially with football, when I was like first going like this first couple of years, I would really get really frustrated
mm,
because I feel like I wasn't getting an opportunity,
right.
whether that was, this or that, but I just felt like I never had the chance I felt like I should have been getting.
Mhm.
And then eventually, like throughout, um, my years, I've been able to see, like, the changes that I've had,
Mm,
whether that's, like, me personally and, like, my character and stuff,
mhm.
or, like, the changes that, like, the people around me have been able to provide. Um, I remember times where I was, like I'd be down, like, pissed, just,
Right.
like,
Right.
furious because, like, there's a lot of stuff with college football is out of your control,
Mhm.
and so, like, you feel like you can't do anything about it.
Mm,
And so, like, looking back on it, it's like, I needed those times to
mhm.
be able to make me, like, who I am now.
Mm. What's one of the one things that football has helped you grow in? Whether it's character wise, whether it's, personality, certain traits, what.
I feel like for me, um, like, my character is always kinda, like, revolved around sports.
Right.
So, like, that's always kinda been who I am is, like,
Mhm.
like, the guy who's, like, been the sports guy.
Right, right.
Um, so I feel like I don't know, I just feel like football has taught me a lot about, like, the mental side
Mm.
of things,
Mhm.
because 'cause you're handling so much on your plate.
Yeah.
You got, playbooks, you got school, you got all this stuff, so being able to, like, mentally figure out, like, the things that you need
Mhm.
and, like, what you need here, like, just, like, kinda organizing your
Right.
life almost, so
Right.
it's been good because obviously as you get older, you have family, all that sort of stuff, like,
Mhm.
it's the same thing.
Right.
Football teaches you a lot, I feel like, for
Oh
life.
yeah, my goodness. Yeah. The mental toughness is so interesting with football because I don't think a lot of people realize that the schedule, but also the pressure and the expectation that's put on you to
Yeah,
perform.
yeah.
But people don't understand there's pressure to perform in practice at a high
The
level.
practice is what gets you to the games, and, like,
Exactly.
people think it's like, oh, they show up on Saturday and, like, that's where all the pressure comes from. There's just as much pressure on a Tuesday at 6 a.m. as there is on a Saturday Memorial.
And as you know, sometimes I mean, I don't know how y'all do it now, but back in the day, we was, getting 15 play calls and we had to know them in 15 minutes and go execute them and walk through in team period, so
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
No, it's crazy because
Yeah.
you're so worried about like being perfect. And like that's kind of always been my thing is like something that I maybe struggle at is like I always want to be perfect. And so like studying like late in the night, like you're trying to get your plays down so that way tomorrow you go out there and like you execute it perfect.
Right.
And sometimes it's just like it's a lot. You get a lot of pressure built up. You just feel like everything's gonna start crashing down soon. You just gotta be able to like be in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's something that this staff has been really like helpful at is like allowing us to like teaching us and like giving us opportunities to feel in the moment. So it's been really cool.
So being I talked to IGC and he was talking about being one of the older guys. He's been getting the unks and the
Dude,
the
these kids
pops
are something else. And then so like I'm 22.
Right.
Most of these cats are, 17, 18.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, they'll be saying like words that I don't even understand. Like it's insane.
When were you born?
I was a 02.
02. So some guys are like 04, 05.
05.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Like it doesn't even make sense in my mind.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And then the worst part about it is like I'm now engaged, so it's like they think I'm even older and like even more of a like I'll be just like just today we got done doing OTAs and everything. I'm sitting on the ground just like chilling and watching. They're like, "Come on, uncle, let me help you up."
Oh, Lord.
I was like, so then I go, "Don't make me stand up and beat your rear end." And they're like, "That's the old grandpa thing to say." And I was like, "What am I supposed to do
You
here?
can't win.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
So having like those young guys, like what type of advice do you give? Like you got your fresh pups, even the guys coming into their sophomore year, whether they played or not, like there's still so many things to learn in college. Like what type of advice, counsel can you give those guys?
So that's actually the really cool thing in my like shoes where I've been able to do this like player development thing. So like I'm actually like a guy that like they can go to like that's technically like on staff, but I'm not.
Right.
So I'm in a weird position where like they can come to me as like a coach almost, like an older guy that's on staff, like with player development and like if they need help with their schedule or like this and that, like, just outside of football stuff. But then they can also just come to me if they need to be like I'm a player, I'm a teammate of theirs.
Wow.
It's like I've been put in a really cool position where like guys know me as both, especially these newer guys where like I'll introduce myself like as Elliot, your teammate, but then I'm also
Have this role.
yeah, this role where like if they really do need something outside of like just being like a teammate, I'm available for them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing that the staff offers that.
So
I've never heard of that ever.
I think
ever.
and like I might own like I don't know, like don't think I'm bragging or like anything, but like Rule did a press conference just the other day and he was like, I've made like he's like the only one he's like he said I'm the only one that he's seen be able to do this.
Yeah, because you gotta be anointed for that, literally. Because I've never heard of that and never known someone capable of doing that.
So it's like really cool because it's like I try to be like a team leader. Like obviously I'm an older guy, so like I just have that senior kind of like leadership. But then I also want to be like a leader, like just in myself, where like I can help guys become better men.
Right.
Almost.
Right.
And so a lot of that has to do with like being able to be in that position.
Ending things off, I want to talk a little bit about like the receiver room. Because for people that don't know or people that do know, receivers have some of the most unique and loud and spontaneous personalities.
Yeah, you get a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So what's a guy in the receiver room that first of all has that outside the box personality, as I should say?
Yeah. It's because it's like we were saying, like I'm old to these guys.
Right.
So like they don't like it's a different wavelength that like these kids have versus what I have. But it's cool. Like it really is like you hear the guys like, oh, they keep me young. But like it's true. Like these guys are like cracking jokes that I don't even understand. So like, but it's fun. It's really cool. We have guys from everywhere.
Right.
Florida, Texas, up in Washington, D.C. You got guys from everywhere, so it's really cool. And like I feel like this is one of the closest rooms we've had. I think a lot of that has to do with like our coach. He's a phenomenal coach, Coach McGuire, really good leader, really good teacher, and like our room is very special, I think, this year, and hopefully we're able to show that this year.
What would you say like the identity of the room is going in?
Toughness.
Mm.
We want to be like a gritty receiver room.
Mm.
Get out there, block on the perimeter, but then
Yeah,
also
man.
just go downfield. Like we want to run
Right.
fast.
To make some plays.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Who's a guy that this summer just on the whole team that you would say you've seen grown?
Grow, I don't know, like, because there's a lot of guys obviously that have been making strides on this stuff, but
Right.
it's just like everyone has like taken their own. Like I feel
Mm.
like everyone's really finding their role.
Mhm.
Like we're not even in the season yet, so like
Mm.
it's really cool to be like you see guys like having their own identities like on the team, like
Mm.
finding their ways that they fit.
Mm.
So it's really cool to be able to like. I'm excited to see how that plays out
Right.
once we start getting pads on and stuff like that.
Right. So this is my belief, and I think it's pretty well known across the football community. Do you think things change in July as we approach fall camp and things get a little bit? There's like a different tenacity once you come home from once you come back from that July 4th break. There's like
Yeah.
there's a tiny switch that changes.
So, like, this, like, scary thing and, like, scary in a good way is, like, I
Hmm.
feel like we've had that
Mm.
like, kinda, like, that killer instinct because
Hmm.
like, everyone's has that even these new guys that weren't even on the team last year, we all have this, like, kinda bitter taste in our mouth
Right.
about how this last season went, and so we're all you've seen, we call it the chasing 3. Everyone's had that mindset of, like, "We will not stop until we get what
Mm.
we want,"
Mm.
and so, like, from the second we ended spring ball, we had that little break. The moment we came back, everyone was like, heads down, we're going to work and
Mhm.
we're gonna earn like what we deserve.
What's been your favorite moment since you've been a Husker?
Mm. Um, Obviously it's kind of hard because we haven't won, obviously, so that's tough.
Right, right.
But no, I'm just kidding. But I don't know, man. I just think it's all the guys that I've got to know
Mhm.
at the senior retreat this year. We were just chopping it up, talking about like all of our past teammates and like how many guys we've been able to interact with and hang out. Like you, for example, like this isn't something I'd be able to do if I didn't have this time with you on the team and
Right,
stuff.
right.
So there's just guys all over the country doing different things, and
Mhm.
I just think it's super cool to be able to have that bond that'll last a lifetime. Being a
Mhm.
Husker football player with like all these different guys.
Mm. If not football, what would you be doing?
MMA,
MMA?
MMA.
Really? When did that come about?
So I started boxing in high school, like early on in high
Okay.
school, and I love it.
Really?
And then ever since then, like I've kind of always kept it on. Like just it's a great workout, first
Uh-huh.
of all. So
Yeah,
like
for sure.
if you're looking at a different way than getting weightlifting in, boxing is it. And then I got introduced to jujitsu also in high school.
Right.
And ever since then, I just kind of always followed like UFC, PFL, all those different things.
Mhm.
And like once I'm done playing football, I want to at least try my hand at least a couple fights.
Pro fights.
Well, obviously, I'll start, like,
Right, right,
small
right, right,
here
right.
in Lincoln, all that
Right.
stuff, but, yeah, I do. Because then the other thing is, like, the UFC does a great job at, like, finding guys for, like,
Mhm.
Dana White Contender Series,
Yeah.
and they have a history of, like, allowing, like, big name or, like, football players who are, like,
Mhm.
proven athletes
Yeah,
where
yeah, of
as long
course.
as you know what you're doing, like, they'll give you a chance. I
Yeah.
already have a good following.
Yeah.
Husker Football Nation would,
Yeah.
like, help me
Oh,
out.
yeah,
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure, for sure.
I think I wanna I know I wanna try it. My parents hate that I say this,
Right.
but I do wanna try it. I think I could be UFC superstar.
Was last thing,
Yeah, go
was
for it.
um one thing the folks, whether you said it on here or not, what's one thing the folks need to know about you or should know about you?
My whole thing is I use it on everything. I hashtag it on everything. It's everything. Every picture I take, it's right here. It's love. My thing is all love. This world is very dark at times, and the only way we can get through that is with love. God's blessed me with so much, so many opportunities, so many good people in my life. The best thing I can do in this world is love the people around me.
Mm.
So I know things may seem dark at times, people, all the craziness that goes on in this world, but we can only get through that with love.
Mm.
So that's my thing.
Awesome. I appreciate you coming on, bro.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yes, sir.